Your journey has been an interesting one up to here. You've questioned so much more than those around you. You've even questioned yourself as to how you could have grown into these thoughts. Am I crazy? When did I begin to think differently? Why do people in general appear so limited in their thought process? Rest assured, you are not alone. The world is slowly waking up to what you already know inside, yet can't quite verbalize. Welcome to the Spiritual Dope Podcast, the show that answers the questions you never even knew to ask, but needed the answers to. Questions about you, this world, the people in it. Most importantly, how do I proceed now moving forward? We don't claim to have all the answers, but we sure do love living in the question. Time for another hit of Spiritual Dope with your host, Brandon Henley. Let's get right into today's episode.
Hey there, Spiritual Dope. I'm on here today with Donna Tashjian. She is an empowering life mastery coach. She is down-to-earth inspirational speaker that has been speaking for over 20 years. She is the founder of Vibrant Living International, author and host of the You Were Designed for Greatness podcast. She's been married to her wonderful husband for over 36 years, mother to 3, and grandmother. She loves flowers, time, and nature, and you will always see her with a cup of tea. Would you have a cup of tea there right now?
I do.
Wow. She has a passion to help you reach your full potential. So, Donna, thanks for being on here today. I'm glad we're able to connect. I usually like to start these off with the whole idea that you and I, we're vessels for source energy, right? That that whatever message is coming through on this podcast today with the conversation you and I have, you and I will hear that, but like somebody on the other side, somebody listening and tuning in is going to get a message that they need to receive, and it can only be delivered through you, through this podcast, in this moment. What is that message?
Oh, that's a big question. The main point that it's what my podcast name is helping people know they were designed for greatness and really stepping in and walking in that. Yeah, that's the main thing I want people to know.
So, I mean, what does that look like for you? Let's kind of walk our way to that. How did you come to find yourself to even recognize that for yourself? And then how did you, and we'll move forward from there.
Yeah, the way my journey began is really a pain point as far as starting back. When I was 14, someone hurt me and I became pregnant. And so at the age of 15, I had a little girl and I raised her. And so there was a lot of times where I was alone. There was no one else to rely on. And all I had was my faith. And that's where, in that pain moment, is when things really began to have, I built my foundation, I'll put it that way, to being able to learn how to trust in God and my spiritual walk, and learning how to create who I was really designed to be through that process. There was all kinds of labels that are put on us, and I had them. All kinds of labels we put on ourselves. And all through that process is like, who am I really? And learning how to discover who we really are, so that, and that is a journey. Who we are in our 20s is different than who we are in our 30s and so forth. And it's a journey as you discover who you really are and the gift you are to the world. Yeah.
Yeah. The whole idea of, it sounds to me like you had faith at a young age. Is that true?
I did.
So that faith was Christianity, was something else?
It was Christianity. Yes.
And you really leaned into that with the pain that you were going through, it sounds like. And it doesn't sound like you had a whole lot of other, I don't want to say it doesn't sound like you didn't have other support, but it sounded like that was what you relied on the most.
Yes, there wasn't a lot of support. And yes, it was something that I relied on, that. And as I have gone forward is learning that how to make sense out of tragedy, one of my programs that I work with some of my clients is called Turning Your Baggage into Luggage. And so how to make sense out of the pain and our disappointments in our life. How do we have them? Because I talk about making them become luggage so that you can create the life you dreamed. And so some of the worst days of my life have brought me to wonderful, incredible places that I wouldn't have had without those painful moments, and learning how to understand that. I mean, it doesn't take, to me anyway, it doesn't take much to see that there's something bigger than us at work. The human body in itself, in all of its magnificence, it couldn't have just happened. That's my belief. And so learning that there is something bigger at work, and through all of the things that happen to our life, there can be something good out of it if you look for it.
Well, for sure, but I think that you may agree, right, that if you go back to your 15, 16-year-old self and you're in all this pain, sometimes when you're in the midst of it and you haven't had a bunch of life experience, for sure, then you could definitely crumble and fall, and you don't see those lessons sometimes when you're in it, right? I think
Absolutely not.
that can be a real challenge, right? As you and I can say, you see the lessons in the tragedy, you see and somebody's in the middle of the tragedy.
Yeah.
And before we even go there, I want to just, agreed, right? Something bigger than you or I is at play
Yes.
here. The human body doing what it does. I always make the statement that if you don't know how to, make your own blood, you don't know how to grow your own hair, all these things that you are doing from within.
You can't make yourself breathe either.
Right. So, I mean, these are things you go to sleep and I wouldn't trust myself to do it. So something else is at play. And
No.
and even that, like the trillions of different parts. And I have a challenge sometimes is, pulling 3 pieces, like, eggs, toast, and cheese and making a sandwich out of it, and so imagine what it really takes to make all of this work the way that it does. So I think that's a great
absolutely.
point. I think it's a great point. So, I mean, I want to hit on that. What are some of the tools that you, so you find yourself, you have these tragic moments, you rely on your faith. Where along the path do you begin to see yourself as having this greatness to explore and share?
I think for me, it was an ongoing journey to know that there was something that more than I could see in the moment, that there was something bigger there. I think that's been a journey to be able to discover. And I know that at that age and through my years, I would not have articulated it, that I was designed for greatness, but I had this knowing that there was something bigger for me to do, and not sure how exactly to get there. The way that I articulate it today, of course, is not what I would have said in the middle of the moment. I just knew that there was more. And there was also this feeling is, blame it on my hair color perhaps, but I'm going to prove you wrong. And knowing that
it sounds like you might have been a blonde.
Yeah.
So I mean, look, I get it, right? Absolutely, the ongoing journey and not being able to express this connection and this feeling and the sense that that there's something greater out there. And my guess is, as you're kind of coming along through your life, it's like you couldn't even really put a finger on it, right?
Yeah.
And regardless of whether or not you know that it's there, where do you feel like you first really began to be able to put a finger on it so that you were able to begin to express it? And what did that look like?
I have done quite a few different things in my life that I think were building to the place that I am today. But Vibrant Living and being a life mastery coach in this capacity is when I began to really realize it. And that wasn't till I would have articulated it this way, was about 10 years ago. So it hasn't really been, I've always had this knowing that there was something, but I didn't know what. And when I began to be able to put a plan to it and strategy to it, that I began to really realize the magnitude of how we were designed for greatness. And my greatness doesn't look like yours. It looks like me. And me being me is actually what's so great. It's learning how to be who we are without having to have people approve of us or worrying about our performance or worrying about all of that. It's just being who you are with the gifts, because you are important. And so learning to be able to articulate that in a way is help others is my sweet spot.
I love that. The idea. Well, first of all, right, 10 years ago, I mean, that's a fairly decent amount of time that you've been doing this work, right, and kind of uncovering it and developing this life mastery coach aspect. And I think that it's a long journey, right? To your point, you spent most of your life working your way up to there, and as you step into this space, you begin to understand that there's so much that you have to uncover, right?
Yes.
These tragedies that you talked about, being able to look at them as lessons later. What got you? What said to you? What was it that said to you, "Hey, I want to get into coaching"? I mean,
Well, I have always had, and before I would have called it mentoring. I've been doing that for over 20 years. So there's always been that capacity there, but it wasn't full time. It was stuff that I was doing on the side. And so it was one of those moments when I said, what do I want to do now that I'm all grown up? What would I really love to do? And I had started a job at a nonprofit organization, which I worked at a lot of them, started them on my own, and thought that would be the avenue to do the thing. But it was actually limiting. And now that I look back at it, but I had put all my eggs in that basket thinking it would be great. And me and the management did not get along after a while. And so I was let go from that job. And so it was a moment of, what do I really want to do? And so I did some deep soul searching. And that's when Vibrant Living, the clarity of the vision of coaching and helping people to step into their greatness, to leave the pain and disappointment of the past behind and create the life they've always dreamed, was born.
so it's almost like there was a moment in there where it doesn't sound like you were fired, but it doesn't sound like the job was extended for an ongoing length of time, right? So there was a moment right there where you felt like you were in a place to serve and to benefit others in this organization, and having that taken away. Again, this is an area where a lot of people could easily kind of shut down and give up. Right. What was it, in the line of question that you took to yourself? What do I really want? What made you even want to continue to go forward and continue to serve? What was?
Well, there was a period of time where I was on the floor, so to speak. It's like the rug has been pulled out from me. I doubted my value. All of the things that we do when those kind of things happen is just wondering, what am I going to do? And all of that. But it goes back to my faith again, because I went back to God and talked to him about it. And that's where I got my direction. And it wasn't a moment. It was little steps. What about this? And what about that? And I just followed the steps, and because I didn't know coaching was a thing 10 years ago. To me, it was a football coach, was what I pictured when you said the word coach. And I'm like, I am not that. I will not scream at you. I will not do that. And so I didn't even know it was, quote, a thing. So it was a journey of step by step as I talked to God about what I should do next, because ultimately, even when we're doing the self-doubt that I don't have worth and that inner critic stuff that goes on, there's a part of us that knows that's not true. There's a part of us that knows there's something more than that. And so that's what I followed, and that's how I got here.
Let's talk about even listening to that, listening to even the small steps, right? Taking those small steps, listening to your, listening to God slash, I think a lot of the people that would tune in would call it like your inner guidance, your intuition, following your bliss. What gave you the strength to follow that, right? Or I don't know that strength is the right word, but I think you get what I'm saying.
I think so. There is our intuition, as you say it. I agree with intuition. It's a place that I believe God speaks to us, and people call it different things. But I liken my strength to coming from Him. It's more than intuition, and for me. So that was, and knowing, and like I said, even though that there's the self-doubt, we know, I believe we know there's something more for us, something that pulling us forward. It's bigger than us, because everyone has something, an impact that they make. And it doesn't have to be what I'm doing or you're doing. It's whatever they need to be doing that's in their heart. So that's where my strength comes from. I know where my strength comes from.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you don't have a doubt now. So when you decided that, hey, I'm going to do this vibrant living bit, I'm going to go ahead and move forward into it, and I'm stepping into my greatness, and I'm helping others do the same. What was the reaction, say, of your family, people that were close to you, around that?
Most of the people that were there around me, the family, is it's about time. Most people had saw that in me. My daughter said, who is an adult now, said, "Mom, there was always women sitting on the couch crying and you were helping them." And that was one of her earlier memories. So that anybody that really knew me, it did surprise them less than it did me of what I had stepped into with this.
That's awesome. So it's great. Sounds like there was some support there.
Yes.
And what about, I always think about the idea of kind of stepping into this kind of work, and following, your spiritual guidance, your guidance from God,
Mm-hmm.
can be scary and intimidating for some. Was there any fear in leaning forward into it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's talk about that and getting past it and through it. What did that look like for you?
Oh, yeah. There's that constant feeling of what if this doesn't work? And wondering, being afraid of failure, afraid of, I guess not working is the best way I know how to describe it. And one of the ways that got me through it is I got a coach to be able to
Wait
help
a second.
me. And
you're a coach and you had a coach.
If you have a coach and they don't have a coach, you need to change coaches.
You need to figure that out for sure.
Everyone needs someone speaking into their life. And I got a coach to be able to help me see what I couldn't see. That's one of the things a coach does, is help you change your perspectives and help you see what you can't see. One of the best advice I got from my coach was to get up every day and proceed as if success was inevitable. When it didn't look like it would work, when it didn't look like you knew what you were doing. I don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. All of that stuff, when you start something new, was to get up every day and proceed as if success was inevitable. And that phrase, well, there was others, but that particular phrase, every day I did that. Now there'd be a couple of days that I wanted to stay in bed because I wouldn't think it wouldn't work. But almost every day, that was my choice, to choose to believe it would work. That in itself brings a different outcome. So that's one of the best things, is that get a coach.
Right. Get a coach. I love the idea too of, act as if, It's not even act as if, right? Just kind of
No.
success is inevitable. You're just walking your path, and
Right.
as you said, trying to figure it out. Look, I don't know about you. I don't. I don't pretend to believe or know that I've had a past life so that I know what to do with this one. This is, for all intents and purposes, this is my first go round. So I'm doing my best. And, I think that if it comes to starting a new endeavor, like you've done with Vibrant Living, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you've made it this far. So why not?
Yeah.
Right.
It didn't always look like it looks today. When you're starting out, will anybody hire me as a coach?
Right.
Those kind of feelings are always there. And, what if it's a problem that I don't know how to handle or whatever? It can be scary anytime you start a new endeavor, but it doesn't look like that today.
No doubt. I got to imagine that you did a little bit of let go and let God in your life. What's that look like for you, that statement?
Let go and let God. The difference between having to control everything, and that is actually, for me at least, when I want to control everything, it's because of fear. And therefore, when I am trying to fix everything and make everything work the way I think it should, that's fear-based. And that doesn't have a very good outcome when we make decisions from that place. But let go and let God is doing the best that I can with what I can do and leave the rest to Him. That's what it means to me.
No, I like that. I like that. Just definitely curious because, again, you've got a deep faith in what you're doing. So when you're teaching these people, when you're teaching your clients how to, create luggage, let's walk through some of what that might look like. Let's say, for example, I've got some baggage and I want to create it in luggage. Walk me through the process.
All right. Well, this isn't going to be done in the next couple minutes, just so you know that. But one of the steps is I alluded to before is I call it building our understanding muscle. And that is that in any adversity, there is a gift. I call them gifts wrapped in sandpaper. Baggage thinking when something adversity happens is this isn't fair. This isn't right. This isn't just. Somebody needs to pay. That's baggage thinking. And when you're thinking that, you get stuck in the baggage. To repackage it into luggage, you begin to say, I can't change it. It happened. I'm going to use it to grow and become the best me I can be. So the first step is the gifts wrapped in sandpaper. The second is learning to get support. The third is having compassion and forgiveness for others. That forgiveness is part of setting yourself free. So those are 3 steps to be able to build your understanding muscle. And that's one of the things, simply. And those could be talked about for a little while.
Yeah, first of all, the visual of gifts being wrapped in sandpaper, it's not even a visual. I can feel it, right? I'm like,
Yep.
it's not even like the fine grit. It's the stuff that'll cut you if you don't handle it properly, kind of sandpaper,
Right.
right?
Right.
And the idea of compassion and forgiveness and forgiveness so that you can, set yourself free. I think that there's a misconception of what freedom is. And I think in this context, when you're setting people free, what would you say you're helping them to do? What are you setting them free of?
Well, when you say freedom, what are you thinking?
I think these days, I'm thinking freedom from in my own mind, right? Like letting my own internal bondages go and just, recognizing something as self-limiting, recognizing that I'm the person who wrapped the gift in sandpaper, right? And so when I think that other people may think of freedom as like, well, I want to go out and do the things I want to do. I want to be able to, buy beer at 18
Yeah.
instead of 21. This isn't right. I don't feel free. I want to be liberated. And that's one type of freedom. But I think that the true freedom that you're teaching, at least my perspective would be, is teaching people how to free their minds and their hearts.
Yeah. That's what forgiveness does. One of the people that we often need to forgive is ourself. When we've gone through things, somehow we blame ourselves. We're very hard on ourselves. And when we begin to forgive ourselves, it causes our eyes, if you will, to lift off of our feet. If you can look at that kind of picture, a person that's down and they're looking at their feet, and you lift your eyes up and you begin to know that this is this is a chapter in my book, not the whole book, and not to let it be that whole book. But freedom really is internal, not external. And I can't remember the man, he was a writer he was in the Nazi concentration camps. And he talked about the
Frankl.
Freedom that,
Viktor Frankl.
Yes, that quote that I'm going to misquote, but you get the idea that, the freedom is actually internal. You can be free. And he, in his estimation, inside the Nazi prison, they couldn't take that away from him. But if he had held unforgiveness, he would have had that weight and he would not have been as free. Forgiveness is a huge subject, and it means a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And I spend a lot of time helping people understand what that really is and how that really works. But the biggest point I want to make is that you begin to look for something good in the midst of things. It lifts your eyes up. It changes the way your outcome is, because I'm no longer, for me, I described it as my pity party, where I'm feeling sorry for myself. And that doesn't get us anywhere. Winston Churchill had a quote, "For God's sake, if you're going through hell, for God's sake, keep going." And a lot of times we camp out in our disappointment. We build a tent, we build a house, and we're just going to stay here because this wasn't right. But it wasn't meant to be that way. Journey through it, not stay in it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Right. If you're in hell, just keep on going. Who wants to? A lot of people, I think they feel like they've got to fight that fight. They've got to stay there. There's something for them to write by, and they feel like they're vindicated by staying there in that space. And it's almost like a badge of honor. I'm in hell. Nobody cares. I'm in hell. Right. Well, keep on moving. Right. Your exit's coming up. And keep them going. Donna, what is what's top of mind for you right now? Is like kind of COVID's going through. What's your client? How's your clientele been through COVID? What are you seeing is helping people to get through this period right now?
The main thing that COVID has done, as far as what I'm involved in, is it made people seek help that might not have before. But personally, as far and there's been a lot of loss, not just of necessarily life, but life changes that have occurred, and grief is a definitely something that shows up to help people look through and work through. So that's probably the main area, is the loss. It doesn't necessarily, I mean, people have lost jobs and people have lost what they consider freedom, and all kinds of situations for them to be able to learn how to move through that. And the other thing that has stuck for some of the people I've talked to is they can get set. I'm not a fan of the news because there's no good news. But if you watch that kind of thing, you can get stuck in hopelessness and fear. And so helping people to rise above that.
Yeah, that's a big one. Do you advise that they turn the news off?
If it's causing them severe anxiety, yes, absolutely.
What's the typical reaction to something like that?
Most of the time they agree with me. If there's other ways of finding out what's going on than sitting hours watching the news.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that to find out what you need to know to stay current.
Sure.
And so there's other means to do that.
What do you recommend to stay current for people that aren't going to watch the news?
There's different online outlets where you can read the captions to be able to do that. And if there's anything big going on, their friends will let them know.
Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, I think I heard it maybe first through Tim Ferriss, and not necessarily Tim Ferriss, but the whole idea that once you turn the news off, now you've got like this great conversation because your friends will come up to you and be like, "Did you hear about blah 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 blah?" And you'll be like, "I didn't. Tell me all about it." That's just a lot. Now you've got conversation.
Somebody will tell you, that is for sure. If there's something that you really need to know, somebody will tell you.
For sure. What is there something that maybe we haven't touched on so far that you'd want to share with our audience today?
I don't know if there's anything else. I've hit the most important parts is having them look for the gift in situations, to keep their eyes up, to get support and help. We're not meant to do this alone. And for me, I would encourage you to strengthen your faith, strengthen that part of your life to be able to get through it. So those are some things.
For sure. I mean, I agree with that 100%. Find that something bigger and greater in your life that we know exists. Give it a name, whatever you feel like you need to, and lean into that. There's something really in there. When I was talking about the let go and let God thing earlier, for me, I devised a way where it made sense for me in my mind, and like the weight fell right off. It was amazing. I was like, let go and hell, this makes sense. And so I think that's super powerful to share.
Absolutely.
One of the things that I guess I'd love to touch on though too is sharing kind of the benefits of connecting with spirituality and source and your greater self. What does that look like in action, right? I mean, because I'm sure you've run into the occasional person who just doesn't see it yet and can't feel it yet, that just says, well, that sounds great and ideal, but how's that going to help me, with my day job?
So your question is how do we connect with God?
The question is, we're talking this ideal life that's available, right? Okay. We're talking stepping into your greatness. We're talking, okay. Accepting that we are great and we've got these gifts to share.
Okay.
How do you help the person that just isn't seeing that yet, right? The person is like, oh yeah, but you still gotta, pay the bills. You still gotta do the whatever. You still gotta do some other work, and you don't just become great just because you said so, Donna.
I love that question. I'm glad I asked what exactly you meant. The key to it all is, remember what we said freedom was. It's internal. And so when I have someone who feels hopeless, which is kind of what you were describing, I'm stuck in this dead-end job. I don't feel great. I don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything. I don't know that I really even matter, perhaps. And helping them work on their internal beliefs and mindset would be the first step, because you can't see, it's like the world looks flat. I can't see what I can't see. And from where my perspective is, it's flat. That's what the world is. And so that just because that's all you can see doesn't mean that's all there is. It's just what you can see right now. So what I help people do is to see more, to be able to see the round of the earth, so that they can see that there is more than your dead-end job, as you put it, or whatever limiting things that you feel like are in your life. There's more to see, and I would help you see that. That's what a coach does, is help you see what you can't see yet.
Thanks. No, it's like I said, it's just one of those. I know that I've run up against it, and people, it's a challenge, right? To just try and help them to understand what is it you're going to help them do, right? What exactly is it you're going to help them do? So thank you for clarifying that for me. So we're in a little spot of the podcast where I like to kind of think about what this is spiritual speed dating, right? Like there's somebody out there who's looking for their next spiritual hookup, as it were. And I have a question or two I'm going to go ahead and ask you along that line, Donna.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
spiritual bachelorette number one. Why are so many people depressed?
Because what they're focusing on.
What do you mean by
It's as
that?
simple as that.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Whatever you focus on, you magnify. Whatever you focus on, you multiply. If I'm focusing on the lack that's in my life, anyone could be 15 minutes away from depression if you start focusing on what's wrong in your life. Your life is always filled with good and bad. Let's look at our neighborhood. There's good parts of our city and there's parts that's not. There's great things about there's jobs and there's things that you don't like. In the house you live, you like this, but you don't like that. There's always a mixture of good things that we enjoy or we prefer and things that we would prefer not. It's wherever you put your focus. That's what you're going to magnify and multiply in your life. So if you are, and the other thing is your focus also creates emotions. We think emotions just happen, but they happen by what I'm focusing on. So if I'm focusing on the negative and the lack in my life, I'm going to have negative emotions. If I choose to focus on what the blessings are in my life, finding things to be thankful for and grateful for, that's the quickest way to pull you out of depression or anxiety.
Don, it sounds like you're saying I might be able to control my emotions.
Just a bit. And I talk to women, so there's even more emotions. We do have more emotions.
Yes.
And I will say it. And so teaching women how not to be ruled by my emotions, I can actually control them and rule them as well. Now, there are some chemical things going on in women's body that are different. I'm not going there. I'm just generalizing that where I put my focus, my feelings will follow.
I think that's a great point. A lot of times we feel like our emotions come before our thoughts, right? And what we're focusing on. But what you're saying again here is that what you focus on and what you're thinking about is what can help to drive those emotions.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
So let's try. What are we all so afraid of?
I think the most thing that if we really got down to, we're afraid of not belonging and being loved, is probably one of the main things. And the other things is I want to matter. I want to somehow matter. And so I think that's probably the main thing. We want to belong and be loved and matter.
Yeah, that's a big one. We want to feel like we're significant in some way, right? We're seen for our contributions and the kind of like the truth of who we are. We want our greatness shining through. And sometimes we may not feel like that it is, and that can cause us to kind of definitely be upset and afraid to make the next step. Nobody's seeing the greatness that I'm contributing. Nobody's seeing, the truth of who I am.
Yes.
And that can definitely make you afraid to step forward. So, Donna, who would you say is your ideal client right now?
My ideal client, I coach women, so that's first criteria. And the ideal client is someone who has had a painful past, and disappointments, and they're feeling like they're stuck there. They just kind of keep showing up, and they want to move forward and create a life they've always dreamed. That would be. I wanted to make a comment about greatness since I've said that a lot. It came to me with the last couple comments you said, is a lot of times we think greatness is grandiose. And the most important thing, I want to get this across, is greatness is just being you. That is great. And I wrote a blog. I'm probably not the first one to say it, but small hinges move big doors. Sometimes we could change the world if everyone was kind. Just being kind. It could transform our whole world. So it doesn't mean great, doesn't mean grandiose necessarily, but just be you, authentically you, and be kind. It changes everything.
It's a great point. I remember years ago when I first felt like I was quote unquote stepping into my greatness, just feeling all of who I am. Right. And that was it. It wasn't anything bigger or greater, just feeling true to myself. And
Right.
I was at a dad convention, Dad 2.0, which is like a bunch of dad bloggers go to that. And I was asking them, I said, well, what do you think is keeping you from your own greatness? What's keeping you from stepping into your greatness? And people, I think, took it the same way that you're saying it right there. Well, who am I to be great? Well, you're here to be great. Is kind of how I would see that. So thanks for that clarification. Where should we send people to get a little more Donna Tashjian?
You did it.
I did it. All right.
My website would be the best place. I'm also on social media, so you can check me out on social media. But my website is iVibrantLiving.com.
Donna, I want to say thanks for taking the time to stop on the podcast today. Really appreciate what it is that you're bringing out to the world, helping these women to kind of get unstuck. And
really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Spiritual Dope Podcast.
Thank you, Brandon.
Stay connected with us directly through spiritualdope.co. You can also join the discussion on Facebook, Spiritual Dope, and Instagram at spiritual_dope. If you would like to speak with us, send us an email through brandon@spiritualdope.co. And as always, thank you for cultivating your mindset and creating a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking part of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay fully up to date. Until next time, be kind to yourself and trust your intuition.